As the years go by, we're told to stay busy, stay useful, keep pushing forward. But what if real peace, real joy comes not from doing more, but from finally allowing yourself to do less? Yes, sometimes the wisest thing you can do is step back, stop overthinking, stop overgiving, stop chasing perfection. In this video, we explored 8 things that simply aren't worth your energy anymore. Because letting go isn't weakness, it's wisdom. So take a deep breath and ask yourself, what can I release today to make space for peace? If any of these reminders spoke to your heart, take a moment to subscribe so you'll never miss what's next. And before you go, share your thoughts below with just I'm ready. Ready to live lighter, slower, happier. You've earned this season of ease. And in our next video, we'll walk even deeper into how to embrace it with strength, with grace, and with joy. Number 1, stop overthinking about what others think of you. There comes a time in life, often around the age of 70, when you begin to understand something deeply freeing. Not every opinion deserves your attention, and not every judgment requires your response. For most of us, our younger years were spent tangled in questions that chipped away at our peace. Did I say the right thing? Do they like me? What if they think I'm strange for doing this? It's a loop we've all lived in. But now is the time to step off that merry-go-round. Let me tell you a story about Harold, a 75-year-old widower from Oregon. For most of his life, Harold tried to be what others needed: a dependable co-worker, a loyal friend, a husband who rarely said no. He dressed a certain way, laughed at jokes that didn't amuse him, and even attended events he didn't enjoy, all to avoid disappointing anyone. But after his wife passed, something shifted. One morning, sitting on his porch with a cup of chamomile tea and a breeze nudging the wind chimes, he asked himself a question he had never dared ask. What do I actually want now that I don't have to please anyone but myself? From that day on, Harold changed. He wore what felt good, not what looked acceptable. He spent more time painting in his garage than attending meaningless family dinners where he felt invisible. And when someone said, "You've changed," he smiled and said yes. Finally, the truth is, people will always have opinions. Some will misunderstand you, some will quietly judge, and some, well, they'll simply never get it. But none of that has anything to do with your joy. Their opinions don't determine your worth, and their expectations, they don't belong to you. Freedom begins the moment you stop handing other people the pen that writes your story. Be who you are unapologetically. Live how you want joyfully. Those who matter will accept you exactly as you are. And those who don't, they were never meant to stay for the final chapters of your life anyway. So today, give yourself permission to be lazy in the best way possible. Lazy about impressing others. Lazy about chasing approval, and gloriously lazy about shrinking yourself to fit in places that no longer feel like home. Because at this stage in your life, peace isn't just a desire, it's your birthright. Number 2, stop wasting energy on arguments and drama. There's a quiet kind of wisdom that settles in with age, a wisdom that knows when to speak and, perhaps more importantly, when to stay silent. In your younger days, you might have felt the need to jump into every disagreement, defend your views fiercely, and prove your point. No matter the cost. Maybe it was about politics, family choices, or how someone loaded the dishwasher. But as the years pass, something inside you softens and sharpens at the same time. You start to see that not every opinion is an invitation, and not every disagreement is worth your peace. Let me share the story of Margaret, a 74-year-old former librarian from Ohio. For most of her life, she believed in the power of words, debate, and reason. She could hold her own in any conversation, polite but firm, always backing her points with facts. But after her husband passed and her health began to shift, she found herself exhausted, not just physically but emotionally. One afternoon at a family barbecue, her nephew launched into a spirited rant about something Margaret disagreed with deeply. Years ago, she would have joined in trying to change his mind, correcting his facts, getting worked up in the process. But this time she simply smiled, nodded gently, and said, "If that's what you believe, then that's what you believe." Then she walked away and sat under a tree with a slice of peach pie, listening to the wind. That moment stayed with her, not because she'd said something profound, but because of what she didn't say. She had chosen peace over pride, and in that choice she discovered a freedom she hadn't known before. The truth is some people argue not to understand, but to win. Some conversations aren't about connection, they're about control. And some minds were made up long before you opened your mouth. So why waste your breath trying to shift a mountain that never intended to move? At this point in your life, your time and energy are too precious to spend on emotional tug-of-wars. Let others be right if they need to be. Let silence be your response when noise doesn't serve your spirit. Because peace isn't found in proving a point, it's found in walking away with your dignity intact. So today, give yourself the gift of quiet detachment, smile more, nod when needed, and save your energy for things that truly matter: laughter, love, and the kind of conversations that feed your soul, not drain it. Number 3, stop trying to fix everyone's problems. There's a gentle freedom that arrives with age, the kind that lets you set down the weight of the world and simply breathe. For so many years, maybe decades, you've been the problem solver, the one who always had advice, the one family called when things went wrong, the one who stayed up worrying about someone else's choices, carrying burdens that were never yours to begin with. But at this point in life, you deserve something more than constant responsibility. You deserve peace. Let me tell you about Raymond, a 76-year-old retired mechanic from North Carolina. For most of his life, Raymond was the go-to guy. His daughter would call him in tears over relationship issues. His grandson would ask for help whenever money got tight, and even his neighbors had grown used to knocking on his door with small repairs and big emotional messes. And every time Raymond showed up, tools in hand, advice ready, heart wide open. But one night, after a particularly long phone call with his daughter, another crisis, another tearful request for guidance, he sat alone at his kitchen table, staring at the cold coffee he never got to finish. He realized something that changed everything. He was tired, not just in his bones, but in his soul. He wasn't bitter. He loved his family dearly. But he was beginning to understand that helping everyone all the time had come at a cost. He had given so much for so long that he'd forgotten how to just be. From that day forward, Raymond made a quiet promise to himself. He would still be there with love, with presence, but not with solutions. He began responding differently when problems came his way. Instead of jumping in with answers, he'd say, "That's a tough one. What do you think you'll do?" And then he'd just listen, not fix. Just listen. And something surprising happened. The people around him didn't fall apart. In fact, they started to figure things out on their own. His daughter called less often, not because she loved him any less, but because she was growing stronger. His grandson learned how to manage his money. Even Raymond's days started to feel lighter. He had more time to sit on his porch, tend to his garden, and rediscover the joy in quiet afternoons. The truth is, it's not your job to carry everyone else's storms. You can offer shelter, yes, a warm word, a listening ear. But let others learn their own lessons, even if they stumble. Especially if they stumble, there is wisdom in falling and power in getting back up. So today, let go of the need to fix. Be a listener, not a lifeline. Be a presence, not a rescuer. Your value is not measured by how many fires you put out. It's measured by the peace you choose to protect. This is your time now. Time to rest, to enjoy, to live without the weight of everyone else's chaos on your shoulders. And believe it or not, the world keeps turning even when you say that's not mine to carry. Number 4, stop chasing perfection and let go of regret. At some point, we all come to a quiet realization. Perfection was never real to begin with. When we were younger, we chased it endlessly, trying to say the right things, make the right choices, live the right life. We worried about what we hadn't done yet or what we didn't do well enough. But now in these later chapters, something else becomes more important: peace. I want to tell you about Evelyn, a 78-year-old retired school principal from Vermont. Evelyn spent her whole life striving to be perfect. She was the kind of woman who always double-checked every detail, made sure every holiday meal went flawlessly, and constantly pushed herself to be the best mother, wife, and professional she could be. To many, she was a pillar, strong, organized, always in control. But beneath all that, Evelyn carried a quiet heaviness, the regrets she rarely spoke of. There was the time she missed her son's school play because of a work emergency, the friends she lost touch with after a petty disagreement, the dreams she shelved because they didn't seem practical at the time. Even decades later, those memories would sneak in during quiet moments whispering, "You should have done better." But something shifted when Evelyn turned 75. One morning while looking through an old photo album, she came across a picture of herself at 35, smiling full of hope, unaware of the twists and turns ahead. And instead of judgment, she felt something new, compassion. She realized that the woman in the photo did the best she could with what she knew. And maybe that was enough. From that day on, Evelyn stopped chasing the version of herself that never made a mistake. She stopped rewriting old chapters in her mind. Instead, she began embracing her story as it was flawed, yes, but also beautiful. She took up watercolor painting, something she'd always wanted to try but never made time for. She called that old friend. She laughed more, worried less, and every time regret tried to resurface, she reminded herself gently, "That was then, I'm here now." The truth is, regret is a thief. It steals joy from the present by keeping you chained to a past you can't change. And perfection, it's a mirage. You'll never reach it because it doesn't exist, not in parenting, not in marriage, not in life. What does exist is today, this breath, this moment, and that is where your happiness lives, so let go. Let go of what didn't happen, what should have happened, what you wish had gone differently. Forgive yourself the way you would forgive someone you love, because you are not the mistakes you made. You are the lessons you've learned, the love you've given, and the wisdom you carry now. At this stage of life, you've earned the right to stop chasing and start enjoying. So do just that. Celebrate your story, not because it's perfect, but because it's yours. Number 5, stop accumulating unnecessary things. There comes a time in life when we begin to look around at all the things we've collected, not just the furniture, clothes, or keepsakes, but the quiet weight they carry. What once felt like security can slowly start to feel like clutter, not just in our homes, but in our hearts. And in this season of life, the greatest gift you can give yourself is lightness of space, of mind, of spirit. Take the story of Joan, a 79-year-old widow from Minnesota. For over 5 decades, she filled her home with memories. She had cupboards full of china passed down from her mother closets, stacked with clothes from every era, and shelves lined with books she meant to read one day. But after her husband passed and her children started gently suggesting she consider downsizing, Joan realized something. All that stuff was starting to close in on her. She began slowly, just a single drawer one morning. Inside were birthday cards from years ago, yellowed receipts and keys that no longer fit any lock. She smiled, laughed, even teared up now and then. But more than anything, she felt lighter. So she kept going. She gave her granddaughter the locket she used to wear every Sunday, donated coats she hadn't touched in years to a local shelter, held a garage sale where neighbors stopped by and shared stories about items they remembered from years ago. And with each box, she let go of something shifted. Her home started to feel like a sanctuary again, not a museum. She had space to stretch, to move freely, to breathe. Her afternoons became about sitting by the window with a cup of tea, not tidying up endless knickknacks or searching for things buried under piles of just in case. The truth is, we often hold on to things thinking they define us, that the more we have, the more we are. But as we grow older, we start to see clearly what truly matters isn't stored in closets or tucked away in boxes. It's the feeling of sunlight through a clean window. It's the laughter of a grandchild echoing in a tidy room. It's the freedom to wake up and feel unburdened by the weight of what no longer serves you. So simplify, not because life is ending, but because it's still unfolding. Let go of what you don't love, don't use, or don't even remember owning. Pass it on, give it away, or bless someone else with it. The fewer things you cling to, the more room you make for what's real: connection, presence, and peace. In these golden years, less isn't loss. Less is clarity. Less is joy. Less is finally having space for what your heart has needed all along. Number 6, stop trying to please everyone. There's a quiet kind of liberation that comes with age, the kind that lets you take a deep breath and finally say, I don't have to live for everyone else anymore. For decades, maybe your entire adult life, you've been the reliable one, the helper, the peacemaker. You've shown up, sacrificed, said yes when you wanted to say no, but now is your moment to reclaim yourself. Let me tell you about Helen, a 73-year-old woman from Arizona who spent her life being what everyone needed. She was the one who remembered every birthday, made every holiday meal, drove across town to babysit at a moment's notice. She hosted family gatherings even when she was tired. She bit her tongue at rude comments, smiled when she was hurting, and always gave more than she received. One afternoon, after yet another exhausting week of doing things she didn't truly want to do, Helen sat in her garden and asked herself something simple but profound. What do I actually want? Not what her daughter wanted, not what her sister expected, but what she wanted. That's when everything began to change. She started with small steps. She declined an invitation to a family dinner that felt more like an obligation than a joy. She took a pottery class on Thursday evenings, even though it meant saying no to her neighbor's weekly bingo night. She stopped apologizing for resting, for saying no, for putting her needs first. And you know what? The world didn't end. The people who truly loved her still showed up, and those who didn't understand slowly drifted away. And Helen realized that was okay too. There's a myth many of us have carried for far too long, that we must be everything for everyone all the time. But the truth is, no matter how much you give, it will never be enough for some people. And that's not a reflection of your worth, it's a reflection of their expectations. When you stop trying to please everyone, you make room for something far more precious: authenticity. You begin to live from a place of truth, not obligation. You find peace in your own rhythms, joy in your own choices, and you discover that saying no to others often means saying yes to yourself. So from this day forward, choose you, choose your time, your energy, your peace. Let go of the pressure to be agreeable, available, or accommodating all the time. The people who truly love you will understand, and those who don't, they were never really seeing you to begin with. You've earned the right to live your life without apology, so live it not for approval, but for the joy that's been waiting for you all along. Number 7, stop rushing through life. There was a time when everything felt urgent, when mornings began with alarms, days were filled with appointments and errands, and nights ended with mental to-do lists for tomorrow. Life moved fast, and so did we. But now in this softer, slower season of life, you no longer need to run. You get to walk, you get to breathe, you get to savor. Let me tell you about Walter, a 76-year-old retired postman from Oregon. For decades, Walter's life was structured to the minute mail routes, timed lunch, eaten standing weekends filled with family obligations and community volunteering. Even after retirement, he found himself keeping the same pace, always needing something to do, somewhere to be. But one morning, as he stood on his porch holding a cup of coffee, he noticed a robin building a nest in the oak tree across the yard. He watched for nearly 10 minutes, longer than he had watched anything in years, and realized something strange. He felt calm, present, peaceful. That moment became a turning point. Walter started making space in his day for stillness. He took slow walks, not to get somewhere, but simply to move and notice the trees, the breeze, the warmth of the sun. He stopped eating breakfast in front of the news and began sitting by the window, sipping his tea, watching the world wake up. And he discovered that the joy he had once associated with big events, vacations, celebrations, achievements was quietly hiding in these small, overlooked pockets of time. The truth is, life isn't a race anymore. You don't have to beat the clock, catch up, or push through. The most meaningful moments now aren't in doing more, they're in noticing more. The scent of fresh bread from the kitchen, the sound of children laughing down the street, the way the sky turns golden just before sunset. These moments don't demand attention, but they offer something priceless if we pause long enough to receive them. You've earned the right to slow down, to say no to the unnecessary and yes to the meaningful. Let go of the pressure to fill every hour with activity. Instead, fill your heart with presence. Wake up slowly, sit in silence. Watch the world from your front porch. Because the beauty of this stage of life isn't in how much you do, but in how deeply you feel, how clearly you see, and how tenderly you love what's right in front of you. So take your time. Life is not slipping away, it's inviting you in. And the more you slow down, the more it reveals what you might have missed all along, that the best parts of life were never found in the rush, but in the stillness you once ran past. Number 8, stop worrying about the future. Worry has a sneaky way of showing up just when the house gets quiet and the lights go out. It creeps in with questions we can't answer. What if my health fails? What if I outlive my savings? What if I become a burden and it sits there in the dark with us, robbing us of sleep, joy, and peace? But here's something worth remembering. Worry never changes tomorrow. It only steals today. Let me tell you about Mr. Charles, an 80-year-old grandfather from Virginia. Charles had always been a planner. He had spreadsheets for his retirement folders for every bill and backup plans for every backup plan. But despite his careful preparation, once he turned 78, he found himself lying awake night after night, wondering if he'd done enough. What if he got sick? What if the economy shifted? What if something happened to one of his kids or grandkids? One day, after a particularly restless night, Charles went for a walk in the park. He sat on his usual bench beneath a maple tree and noticed an elderly woman nearby feeding ducks. She looked content, truly at ease in a way Charles hadn't felt in years. They struck up a conversation, and when he shared his fears, she smiled kindly and said, "I used to carry those same worries. Then one morning I realized something simple but life-changing. I've already lived through everything I once feared, and I'm still here." That moment stayed with him. Charles began to look at his life differently. He thought about the tough seasons he'd survived, job losses, health scares, the loss of loved ones, and how each time he found a way forward. Not because everything went according to plan, but because he adapted, because he endured. And most of all, because life in all its unpredictability kept offering him something new to love even in the middle of uncertainty. The truth is, you have already faced more than you give yourself credit for. You've overcome heartbreak, illness, setbacks, and change. You are more resilient than any worry could ever imagine. So why let fear take up space in a heart that's still beating, still loving, still hopeful? Instead of asking what might go wrong tomorrow, ask yourself, what can I enjoy today? The warmth of sunlight on your arm, the smile from a neighbor, a perfectly brewed cup of coffee. These small present things, they are your reality, and they are enough. Every breath you take is a gift, not because tomorrow is promised, but because today is here. So let go of the fear, let it drift away like a leaf in the breeze, and in its place choose gratitude, choose joy, choose presence. Because in the end, it's not the number of days we have that matters, but how many of them we truly lived. And right now in this very moment, you are living, so slow down. Exhale and let that be enough. As we grow older, the secret to happiness isn't found in doing more. It's in doing less of what drains us, less proving, less pleasing, less holding on to regrets. You don't need to chase anything anymore. You've already lived, loved, learned, and now is your time to live freely. Let go of what no longer serves you. Embrace simplicity, breathe deeper, smile more. The weight you release makes room for peace, joy, and presence. Because a well-lived life isn't measured in accomplishments, it's measured in ease, in grace, in gratitude. If this message touched your heart, consider subscribing so you don't miss what comes next. And before you go, type "Feel lighter" in the comments to let us know you're ready for this next beautiful chapter. In our next video, we'll continue this journey, one where doing less truly means living more. You deserve that. You always have.